Welcome to our CEO discussion on sustainability. We are very honored to have as our guest today Lee and Fung Group CEO Joseph Phi. Lee and Fung is headquartered in Hong Kong and has over 230 offices and distribution centers across the world, specializing in managing the supply chains of time-sensitive, high-volume goods for leading retailers and brands across the world. Thank you for your time, Joseph.
Thank you so much for the invitation, Victor.
So, in your view, Joseph, what are the game-changing shifts and opportunities arising across sustainability?
Yeah, a few things. First, if you look at the consumer side, the consumers are now looking for products that are produced in a socially responsible way. And especially now that we're looking at that very important segment called the millennials and more the Gen Z, they want to be associated with products and companies that are aligned with their personal values. And so that's a very important driver. So for this group of people, a very important segment, it's more about not buying more, but buying better. And knowing where the products, how the products are produced, where they are produced, under what conditions are the products produced. So that's one side. The second side is that from an investor's standpoint, the whole ESGs, especially the environmental factor, the sustainability factor is very, very important. They want to invest in companies that are socially responsible, that are sustainable in many ways. And they are guided by the responsible investment principles as guided by United Nations and OECD. So we are now seeing that companies are being asked by the shareholders and investors, let me know what is your ESG agenda? Because failure to present a comprehensive ESG agenda will mean that they may pull out the investment. So the way I'm saying is that the convergence of all these factors, the consumer side, the investor side, the regulatory bodies, more and more that they'll put in policies related to ESG, and more importantly, in my opinion, internally, the employee side for employee retention, for attracting the best talents, you've got to have an ESG agenda. So the convergence of all these factors will mean that, well, it's a concept and it's a strategy whose time has come.
Thank you, Joseph. Do you see these opportunities as particularly region-specific?
I think while this has strongly been advocated by European companies many years ago, I believe that the rest of the world is catching up. And US now will see more and more companies putting in the ESG agenda. In Asia, for example, in the 14th five-year plan of China, they talked about China will be carbon neutral by 2060. So when the largest economy in Asia starts to put in goals like this, I'm sure the rest will follow. So I'm very confident that this will be a global revolution, a global phenomenon.
In the current environment that we have, what have you, Joseph, observed to be critical pivots for or against the wide-scale development and practice of sustainability?
It's a if you look back, unfortunately the pivot it's a bit negative because today if you are going to buy products that are sustainably produced, it costs a bit more. So my sense is that given all the things that are going on, the pandemic and people losing their jobs, I think it's possibly going to be a bit of a challenge to, to pursue this agenda. But if you look at the long term, what a sustainable practice will give us, I think the payback is clear. So if you think of an example, organic cotton has risen what nearly 100% just past 1 year. Again, it's a supply demand, right? So it's risen by 100%. So I think translated into final product, it will be more expensive to buy a product that's made from organic cotton. But I took a lot of I would say encouragement from what happened with recycled polyester. Recycled polyester today costs nearly the same at the same level as the conventional polyester. So the moment that we get the demand, the mass, the scale in there, I think things will equalize.
Very good. Specifically, how is Lee and Fung responding to, as you mentioned, evolving ESG, evolving regulatory, and evolving consumer values and priorities around the CSR?
Well, the whole CSR, the whole ESG, for us, it's a very important part of our agenda. It's on our radar, what I would say 15, 20 years ago. So while a lot of companies basically are doing this as some kind of as a PR and stunt, for us, it's something that's very important. So let me share with you what we have from an ESG standpoint. First, let's talk about environment. So we are in an industry where we source a lot of products, apparel products. So to produce a piece of shirt and a pair of jeans, just one piece of shirt and a pair of jeans, you need 20,000 liters of water. I mean, that's mind-boggling. So, and that's the industry we've lived in over the years. So water conservation is very important. And so as part of the green drive, we are starting to use technology. We're starting to measure how much we have consumed and what are the things we can do, for example, to reduce the consumption of water. Like in the washing cycle, we use possibly the so-called the ozone wash, where you cut 95% of the water use. The second thing about environment is that in logistics, if you look at the way we form pallets, you've got a lot of shrink wrap over there, just to make sure that the pallet can withstand the transport, the routing of the transport, and you want to stabilize that pallet. There is a better way. There's an alternative material that's better than the current use of the shrink wrap plastic. And then the use of the single-use plastic is something that we have discouraged. And then the way we route our transport is such that you'll be able to get more delivered in one trip by optimum, basically, number of drop points. So there are quite a number of things that we're doing from an environment standpoint. Now, the second thing is about social. Social for me is more than the social sustainability. For me, social starts within the company. I see diversity and inclusion as a very important part of social. A lot of times, people do the PR and talk about contribution here and contribution there, but forget about their own employees. And for us, D&I is very, very important. I'm glad to report that we've got about roughly just short of 16,000 employees globally, and from 51 different nationalities. So we want to make sure that at least from a racial standpoint, we are diverse. And then if you look at the male-female ratio, it's 50-50, exactly 50-50. And so again, from a gender standpoint, we are diverse. And then we went to the extent of looking at the senior management. We call it the executive board members. What's the ratio? Well, it's 45% female, 55% male. And so we are still working towards to making sure that we eliminate bias, making sure that this is as diverse and as inclusive as we can be. Now, other parts of S, the social part, will be the working conditions, the working hours. I think the government in China just talked about 996, if you're familiar with the term. Working every day, from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m., 6 days a week. That's a no-no. I mean, we recognize that our employees, they need a fair amount of rest to recuperate. They have their own life, and we want to make sure that we control the number of working hours. At the same time, we ensure that we've got the right working conditions. Now, there is this term called modern slavery that we are very aware of. That it looks like, well, it's not, there's no more slavery, but the way a lot of companies are going about it is really abusing, people, especially the rank and file when they don't have a lot of choices. And then the third part, the governance, within the Fung group, our group chairman, Dr. Victor Fung, 20 something years ago, when it was not even fashionable, we already had a chief corporate compliance officer. So the whistleblowing policy is very mature. The policies against bribery and corruption, that's very mature. And we now are extending how we do business with our partners. And we have a way to train them to make sure that if you do business with Li and Fung, you've got to follow these policies. So ESG is a comprehensive part of we've got a comprehensive agenda and policies there. It's a very important part of our entire strategic plan.
Thank you, Joseph. Now, since the COVID crisis, has there been any particular change in focus at Li and Fung?
Well, we just made ourselves more nimble. In the past, a lot of the things that I talked to you about, you've got to be physically there. So when you're working with a factory and you're inspecting, the attendance record, the workers record, is there any child labor? You've got to be there physically. Now we have to deal with it both physically, since we have boots on the ground, but at the same time virtually. A lot of the trainings that we are conducting with our vendors and partners are now virtual. And so we are, and at the same time, we now have a way of extracting data from the database of ourselves and our partners, and finding ways of helping the whole organization, the entire ecosystem, set targets. So there's no fun by talking about just water conservation. You've got to say, today we use this much water, and this is the timeline when I will progressively reduce the consumption of water by X%, Y%. And this is what we've been doing. So the whole pandemic, in fact, accelerated our whole ESG program.
Very good, Joseph. Our final question: what are the most important behavioral shifts that organizations and consumer must implement to make an impact?
Well, my sense is it's the entire mindset shift from an organization standpoint. A lot of people possibly will be asking the question: is this for real this time? Because there's a lot of sizzle in the past without the substance. Is this for real? Will I be held accountable, or can I get away with this? I think that mindset shift is very important, and we need industry leaders to be at the forefront of change. And we need to make sure that every conversation, similar to what we're having right now, that ESG is part of the agenda. And we need to make sure that the investors, they look at companies in such a way that, yep, the return on investment is very important, but at the same time, having an ESG agenda on the companies they're investing in, they are equally important. So I think it will be the whole of business, the whole of people, the whole of the world approach to make this work. And we all know that failure to do this, the impact, as we have seen in many of the disasters across the world, is unimaginable. So it's that mindset shift is now. We need to role model. We need to play a leadership role, and we need to play an inspirational role for people to start to say that, you know what, I like what Li and Fung is doing. I like what this company is doing.
On behalf of all Boyden officers worldwide, thank you so much, Joseph, for sharing your insights on sustainability and ESG.
Thank you so much, Victor, for the invitation. I thank you, and I really enjoyed the chat.